Hello, class. This is section 2.5, and it's dealing with translations of functions. This is going to be a short section, maybe not any longer than 15 minutes. We're just going to be looking at basic translations and transformations of functions. Okay, so what we have here is we have some function, say f of x, and we want to move it. Let's say we want to move it up, we want to move it down, we want to move it to the right, to the left, we want to flip it over an axis, we want to stretch it out, we want to shrink it down. These are all translations and transformations, and we're going to go through some basic ones and look at these basic translations of functions. So the first two that we're going to look at is vertical and horizontal translations. So this is if we're going to move, say, a function up or down. So let's say we have a function looks like this. We want to just move it, say, up so that it looks like that. Okay, that is a vertical translation, and vertical translations are fairly easy to do. All you do is, if this is f of x, then this would be f of x plus c if we moved it up units of c. Okay, so if we have some function, say f of x equals x squared, and which looks like this, it's a parabola, crosses right there, and we want it to move up, say, 5 units, then all we need to do is add 5 units to the outside. So to move it up, you go f of x plus 5, which is x squared plus 5. So that will be the function that we just drew, except now it'll cross here at 5. Okay, so that's known as a vertical translation. Well, what about a horizontal translation? Well, if we want to do horizontal, instead we're going to add on the inside. So horizontal translation, it's f of x plus c on the inside. So if we want to take, again, our function, here's x squared, and we want to move it to the right, say, 3 units, then we're going to do, that's going to be f of x minus 3. Okay, now I know it's to the right 3 units, and it's going to be the opposite sign, though. So that's the one thing you have to look out for, is this is a negative sign and this is a plus, and that's as expected. Okay, so if we wanted to do this, then it'd be f of x minus 3 to the right 3, which would be, since f of x, the original f of x, is x squared, then that would be x minus 3 squared. Okay. Now, if we wanted to move it to the right 3 and then up 5, we could take our original function, which is f of x equals x squared, and we could move it, say, to the right 3, x minus 3, plus up 5. Okay? So if we're taking the x squared function and we're moving it to the right 3 and up 5, that would be x minus 3 squared plus 5. So this would be our new g of x. So that would be the function, and it's 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. So it would look like that. So it's to the right 3, up 5. Okay? So there's examples of how to do vertical and horizontal translations. So vertical translations are on the outside. So vertical translations are just f of x plus c or minus c. Horizontal translations are translations on the inside, and it's the opposite sign. So if it's to the right, it's going to be negative. To the left, it's going to be positive. Okay? And if you want to do both, you can do both like we did up here. Okay, so that's the first part about translations, these vertical and horizontal translations. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is reflections. So what do we do if we want to reflect? Say we took this function here, which is f of x equals square root of x, all right, and has a restricted domain, and we want to reflect it. Well, we can reflect it around the x-axis or reflect it around the y-axis, and that's different ways of doing it. So if you wanted to reflect this around the x-axis, you would do that by changing the sign. So a reflection around x-axis is just negative f of x. So if we wanted to reflect it around this original function around the x-axis, the new function would be negative f of x, which is negative square root of x. So take this function here, which looks like this, and then we would reflect it down this way, so it looks like this, and that would be negative square root of x. If here is positive square root of x, that would be negative. So that's reflection around the x-axis. Well, what about reflection around the y-axis? Well, to do reflection around the y-axis, the negative is going to have to go on the inside. So reflection around the y-axis, however, instead of it being negative on the outside, it's going to be negative on the inside, like that. Okay, so if we wanted to reflect this guy here with respect to the y-axis, what we do is we put the negative on the inside, and this would be f of x equals square root of negative x, okay, which will then reflect the original one to the left. It'll reflect it this way along the y-axis. So that's reflection around the y-axis. So reflection around x-axis is negative on the outside. Reflection around y-axis is negative on the inside. And if you want to reflect around the origin, then you're going to do both. So the origin, a reflection is going to be both negative on the outside and negative on the inside, and that's going to be for the origin. So there's reflections, how to reflect across y-axis, x-axis, and origin. Okay, so now the translations we have is we have vertical transformations, horizontal. Okay, that's vertical is when you add something to the outside, horizontal is when you add something on the inside, and then we also have x-axis transformations, which is negative on the outside of the function, y-axis transformations, which are negative on the inside of the function, and then reflections around origin, which is negative both outside the function and the inside with the x. Okay? And the last types of things that they're going to do in this chapter is stretching, how to stretch something out. So let's say you have something that looks like this, and you want to stretch it out so it looks like that. Okay? So it's still passing through the same points here. And here, let me redraw this. So it looks like this. Now it looks like that. Okay? So we want to stretch it out that way. Well then, this is called vertical stretching, and all we do then is we take the original f function and we multiply it by some c, where c is greater than 1. So c f of x will be a vertical stretching if c is greater than 1, be a vertical shrinking if c is between 0 and 1. Okay, so it'll shrink it vertically. If you multiply by a number that's less than 1 but greater than 0, it'll be a stretching, making it longer vertically if you multiply by a c greater than 1. So this is called vertical stretching. Okay. We also have horizontal stretching and shrinking. So horizontal, instead of stretching it vertically, let's say you want to stretch it. Here's the original, and you want it to look something like, say, like that. So it's stretching it out horizontally. Well, then you have to do it on the inside. So then it's f of c of x and f of c of x. This is a vertical stretch or horizontal stretch when c is less than 1. It's horizontal shrink if c is greater than 1. So it's a little bit opposite of what you'd expect with the vertical. The vertical, it's a vertical stretch if c is greater than 1. It's a vertical shrink if c is less than 1. So that would be what you expect. But remember, things, when you change them on the inside, they often change contrary to how you'd think. A horizontal stretch is c has to be less than 1, okay, instead of the opposite. Except, it's in the way that you wouldn't expect it, okay? And those are your basic translations they're going to deal with. For the most part in the homework, we're only going to be dealing with vertical stretching, or not vertical, yeah, vertical stretching. They're not going to do much horizontal. And they're mostly going to be dealing with take a function and move it vertically or horizontally. So mostly what you're going to be doing is you're going to have some function f of x equals, say, x cubed, and I say, can you move this up 5 to the left 3? Well, then up 5 would be plus 5, the left 3 would be plus 3, so then it would be f of x equals x plus 3 cubed plus 5. So this is to the left because it's plus, and this is up because it's plus, okay? And that's typically what they're going to have you do. They could also then do flips and stuff around, and that's going to be either negatives on the outsides. If we want to flip it around, we put a negative on the outside, so this would be a flip around the x-axis, okay? If you want to flip around the y-axis, it's going to be negative on the inside, etc. Okay, so that's it for this section. Hope you do well in the homework. Bye.